There is light even in the darkness. Hi, my name is Brett Culp, and I'm going to talk for a few minutes about the film Suicide Squad. You might have seen one of my previous videos. I did a short video review for Batman vs. Superman in which I cried, and I also did one for Captain America Civil War. My goal with these videos is not to critique or criticize a film. It's really about finding the light in it. These are shared experiences. We're all watching these movies and talking about them. And so my goal is to share thoughts and ideas that were very positive and meaningful so that we can, as we have these discussions, there's also some positivity in what we're talking about. So that is my goal. There are plenty of reviews criticizing this film if you want to read them. And I'm actually going to talk for a minute at the end about Rotten Tomatoes and some of those critics and what they've said about this film and how we might respond to that. So anyway, but my goal is to work on the positive side. Before I get into that, let me say two things. First of all, in case you were wondering or just interested in my opinion or you haven't seen the movie, in my judgment, this is really an R-rated movie in a PG-13 body. It has really the sensibilities of an R-rated film, edited down for content into the PG-13 rating that they probably wanted. So just so you know, as you're coming to it, I, in my judgment, don't think this is appropriate for kids. I don't think it's appropriate for some grown-ups, but just so I've said that from the beginning. I also want to say, in terms of one of the characters, I have a lifelong love affair with Harley Quinn. I grew up watching her in Batman the Animated Series. I was a little bit unsettled with her characterization in this film, not because necessarily of the way the actress chose to portray her, but because of just the general sensibility and sexualization of the character. So again, this is going to be very positive in my approach, but I just wanted to say that from the start that I wasn't really comfortable with the sexualization of this character, and wish that had been done differently. So there's that. Now, let's talk about this film, Suicide Squad. At its core, this is a film about some remarkable people, some people who are incredibly talented, but who have had a life that has drawn them, for many reasons, into darkness. They are living in darkness. They have made some dark decisions. They have experienced some difficult things. And this movie is really about the question of, so here we are, what do we do about it? How are we going to respond to that? If you go through these characters, they are in darkness and living in dark places for different reasons. Deadshot chose this darkness because he thought it would be an opportunity to bring him closer to someone he loved. Ultimately, that backfired. It wasn't true, and that is the way darkness works most of the time. Harley Quinn was seeking something emotional. There was an emptiness in her emotionally. She thought that she would find the answers, the connections, the feelings that she wanted to feel by going into those dark places. And you can ask yourself whether or not that's worked out for her or not. Someone like Killer Croc, he was essentially told from the beginning, because of the way he looked, because of his superficial appearance, that he was a villain, that he was evil, that he was dark, that there was a darkness in him. And so that just became part of his identity from the start because of what he was told. And then a character like El Diablo, he made a decision because he couldn't control himself. He lacked the discipline and self-control to choose the light. And in the midst of that, he ended up in his rage and anger and frustration and selfishness, making a dark decision that has plunged him into a terrible place. We could go through the other characters, but in many ways, those are kind of microcosms of where some of us find ourselves. Though not on the same scale, because obviously these kind of movies are exaggerations of all of this. But it may be that you find yourself today in a very dark place. Dark feelings, dark experiences, dark emotions, a dark mental state, or even just in a place that you would describe externally as not good, not positive, dark in your world. And it may be because you chose to be in that space because you thought something good was going to come out of it, and it hasn't. It may be that you had an emotional draw, you had an emotional emptiness inside of you that drew you into making a decision or choosing a way of life that ultimately has led to bad places for you. It may be that someone told you from a very early age, because they didn't really know you, they didn't really understand you, but they judged you from the beginning that you were negative and you were bad. And that kind of put this thing deep down in your heart that makes you feel that way about yourself. Or it may be that there was a singular moment, a moment when you really weren't yourself. Or maybe when you got confused or lost your way for a moment or a time in your life. And it's now put you in this hole, in this box that you feel like and you're afraid that you can't get out of and that you're going to be stuck in for the rest of your life, like El Diablo was. All of those places could be true for you, or maybe just one of those resonates with you. And it may be that you were, as you watch this film, drawn to one particular character, and that may be the reason, because that's part of your life. That's part of something you're struggling with right now. So then the question becomes, what do you do about it? What do you do about it? And this movie, in one scene in the movie where they're sitting at a bar together, this Suicide Squad, Dr. Harley Quinn goes back to her roots as a psychologist and brings some wisdom as what the first step is to that process, and it is to own it. To own it. The El Diablo character doesn't want to speak about it, doesn't want to talk about it, doesn't want to share it. But in that unwillingness to really own it and speak it and put it out there in the world, he's essentially keeping himself from any kind of change, any kind of transformation, any kind of growth or hope in his life, because he's stuffing it up inside him. And what she says to him is, own it. Own it. Don't deny it. Just own it. One of the most successful and well-known programs for people who are struggling with darkness in their life is Alcoholics Anonymous. And the first step of that program is essentially admitting that there's something in your life that has power over you. Something that you're not choosing, something that's beyond you, but it has power over you. Be willing to admit it, to own it, and to share that this is what's going on with you. And that's what has to happen at the beginning. Whatever you're going through or whatever you have been through, the first step in the process of creating change and transformation in your life is saying, you know what, I'm willing to own that. It may be that someone else contributed to that. It may be that there was part of me that was a victim in that process, but I'm not going to just live in a victim mentality and feel helpless. I'm going to own that this is my situation. I'm going to own the part I played in contributing to where I am today. And then I'm going to choose to move forward. And in Alcoholics Anonymous, the next two steps are really about saying that there is hope. There is a higher power out there. There is something beyond you that is the solution to resolving this, to moving from darkness into light, and saying, I'm going to choose that higher place. I'm going to choose that thing that is beyond me, and I'm going to use that. I'm going to allow that to work in my life to do something better and be something more. And that's ultimately the choice that El Diablo makes at the end of this movie. Spoiler. He makes a choice that he is going to give himself to something bigger than him, the preservation of the world, the preservation of his team, of these people who have sacrificed and given for him this, what he calls a family that he has joined. I don't think it's a coincidence that the main bad guy in this film is Enchantress, who has this power and uses it to create fantasies in the mind of people. This is kind of our escape, right? When we're not willing to look into the darkness in our own life, we just want to escape into fantasies. Sometimes that might be just fantasies in our mind of playing out, kind of denying who we are and what's going on in our life and not really being willing to own it. Sometimes that's escape into a video game or a substance, alcohol or drugs or sexuality, or maybe just binge watching something on Netflix. No matter what that is, And many of those things are good things, but when we use those as escape, as way of feeling like there's nothing we're supposed to do, which is kind of this power that Enchantress tries to use over this team at the end of the film, is maybe your life isn't so bad. Maybe there is no darkness to chase out. Maybe there's really nothing to do. Maybe everything is fine. But the truth is, for all these people, they're not okay. There is darkness they have to face. And the choice that they make at the end is to stand up and say, no, we're not going to let you live in that world. We're going to fight for something better. And, you know, these characters at different levels make that choice. I think it would be crazy to have a movie with a bunch of supervillains and have them all make identical choices at the end. At the end of the movie, they make different choices. Some of them make steps towards that, like Deadshot does. Some of them go all in, like El Diablo does. Some of them don't seem to make any change at all. But that's okay. As a story, it kind of shows the differences between these characters and the choices that we can make. So then it comes to you. Same thing. You are remarkable. You have these extraordinary powers. I think superhero stories continue to resonate with us because we are learning about ourselves, that we have incredible skills, incredible abilities, not to fly or to break through walls or, you know, to do these extraordinary superficial physical things. But within ourselves, we have this incredible power. And the question becomes, what will we do with it? What will we do with these powers that we have? And that's the choice you have to make. It may be that today you're kind of stuck in a dark place and you're feeling and experiencing that darkness, but you can use your powers for that if you want to. There are many people in the world that make that choice, but you can also make a different choice. You can choose to bring more light into the world. You can choose to love other people and share kindness and compassion. And I think what's ironic about this film, Suicide Squad, is that that's kind of, in my judgment, the message of this film at its heart. This is the heart of this film. But we are seeing this kind of funny campaign because of some of the critical reactions where people are using their superpowers to do the exact opposite. Rather than using their powers to type on the internet and to share and post positive things that are helpful and that make our world a better place, and then encourage positive change and light and compassion and care for people. Instead, they're using their superpowers to bash people, to attack people, to break people down, and to hurt people. I understand some of the frustration when you look at Rotten Tomatoes and you see that Suicide Squad, I haven't looked at it, but somebody told me it has a lower rating on there than Sharknado does, and some other movies that are just not that great of movies. And the thing that's difficult about all this is I don't think it's a vast conspiracy. I think there's just people respond differently. They do have prejudices. There's no question that they bring to these films. No question about that. But I think it's art, it's subjective, it's about how people feel on a given day and what they as human beings bring to art. And so, but I think it's difficult to process that. But the question is then, okay, here's where we find ourselves. How are we going to respond? Are we going to respond with darkness or are we going to respond with light? And this, uniquely, the message of this film matches up with the very social context this film lives within. And we have a choice about how we're going to respond to that. So in this and in all things of your life, here's the most important thing for you to know. It's that even if you're feeling today like you're surrounded by darkness around you, darkness within you, and you feel like, man, I'm stuck here because of something I did in the past or because of something someone did to me, and I'm never going to be able to break out of this. This is where I'm going to live for the rest of my life. The good news and the news of this movie is that that's not true. You don't have to stay there. You can move towards the light. You can move towards walking through that by owning it, being willing to admit it, and by being willing to give yourself to something bigger than yourself, to seek help from people who can help you. The beauty of this film is these people were joined together in a group. They weren't alone. Alone, they would probably be stuck all by themselves in their spaces, never to get out. But together they can share and talk and understand each other. In some ways, that's kind of like a little support group. And that may be exactly what you need in your life right now. So my hope for you is that you would never feel stuck in the darkness, that you would always know that there is hope for you, there is opportunity for change, that the world needs you, that you actually do have this incredibly powerful thing inside you that you can use to make the world a better place. And I hope that you will do that. And I hope these thoughts were helpful for you. If you liked this, you can check out some other things that I've done in other places. You can watch my film Legends of the Night. It's about people inspired by Batman to become real-life superheroes. It's on Netflix. You can also listen to my podcast. It's called Being an Everyday Hero, and it's on iTunes and Google Play and lots of other places. You can learn all about that and more by visiting my website, brettculp.com. Sending you love and big hugs. Have a heroic day.